So now I'm going to start working on stencil on a cake. So stencil is one technique I am going to do on the wedding cake. I have the tier ready and it's already been doubled, just prepared for the stacking lesson. And here I have some of the stencils that I've been getting or buying them through the years, and that's how the stencil looks. And wherever the gap is, that is the design that will get transferred onto the cake. So these are some of them. Okay, and there are quite a lot of designs in the stencils that you could just get the catalogs from the vendors to take a look at, and you could just get the ones that you think is most suited for any upcoming design that you have. So this material is good enough to go around on the cake, and so if it is like a round cake like the one I have, then I would just be able to bend it and put it around on the surface of the size of the cake, so we could just use the stencil. Basically I'm going to use royal icing because this is a fondant cake. I'm just going to put these aside. I'm going to use this one on the cake. Okay, so what I have with me is royal icing. Because this is a fondant cake. For stencils or anything that you would require a cream, then royal icing is what you have to do. When you could also do stencil over buttercream or even ganache. And when you're doing that, then the buttercream's frosted buttercream cake has to be like really cold, and it should not be sticky to the hand. But the medium that you will use to do the stencil on the buttercream cake is again a buttercream, and the same colored buttercream or a different color buttercream depending on how you're going to compose your cake on the color combination, but the medium will still be the same. Now, if you could also do stencil over a ganached cake, and you could use ganache also on the ganache cake to do the frosting. However, a buttercream also will go stick onto the ganache, or even a royal icing will stick onto the ganache. But the only reason to use royal icing to go on fondant is the royal icing will dry completely hard and it will just become dry. And because fondant to the touch is dry, you cannot be using a buttercream or a ganache over the fondant cake. That is very important, because it is like you could go and touch your fondant cake and then you're not going to mess up on the sides. But similarly, anything on the outside of the fondant that you do, you should be able to go touch thinking, hey, that's a fondant cake, and I could touch, and then it is not going to mess out anything on the outside. Now, if there was a ganache or a buttercream that's kind of piped over, or you did the stencil over buttercream on top of fondant, then you could touch and then it will mess. So to avoid that, we are using royal icing to go on top of the fondant for any kind of decoration. Right now, we are just going to use the stencil. So now I have made the monotone, the same colored royal icing as the tears color. I just want to show the consistency. It's taking a little bit. So you don't want it kind of runny. You want it to hold the shape, but you also want it like quite smooth. Now, if the royal icing that you make is not as smooth and then as stable as this, so this is the consistency we're looking at. It just needs to spread well. But then hold shape also. Hold shape is you just use your spatula to check. I mean, it's not going to move. The shape is just going to stay. So this is the consistency we are looking at. I mean, in case if it is kind of dry, what you have, then few drops of water and then mix it up, and then you can get the consistency, getting it a little bit looser if it is like kind of hard. But if it is too runny, then you could help that with some sifted icing sugar to mix it up and then go get the consistency you want. Okay. Now I'm just going to get the cake. Now see, if this is the stencil, then I just need to figure out how and where I'm just going to start the stencil. So now I'm going to use the pins pen. It could be like two people like one person to help the one who's doing the stencil. That way one of the person can just be holding the stencil, so the other one could just go around and then apply. But in case you're just going to work all by yourself, then you should just use the help of the push pins. So I'm just going to keep the stencil in place and go around and then find one corner and one hole in the stencil itself, and pass the push pin through that hole. Just make sure the stencil is fixed all good. Make sure there isn't gap. Okay, so once the stencil is fixed, now we could just go on and then apply the royal icing. I have the royal icing in the piping bag, so I'm just going to pipe it. Now with this stencil, it could just go in and then kind of get mixed up inside. So you just need to be careful how you're applying when you're using a stencil like this. So when you're going to use, now I'm just going to pick up my small palette knife, and as I'm spreading, I just need to be careful. I'll keep spreading it in one direction and not keep smearing it left and right. So I'm just going to spread it out in one direction. So I don't want to do a left and right smearing. So just make sure you've covered all the gaps. So once I've applied all through, I'm just going to smoothen out the surface, and that's when the stencil is all going to look even. So I'm going to use a scraper. That's a plastic scraper we could just bend. I'm just going to have a clean scrape. If there's excess, just remove that out. So once you scrape, just start pulling out the stencil from one end. So I'm removing the push pin. Just get the pin out from the other end as well. Now in case if there is a bit of mess up here, I don't see much, but just in case if there is any overflow, say for example in these areas where the smearing could have been a bit overdone, so the royal icing would just go in between the gaps of the stencils. So we just allow this to dry completely, and then we again use a push pin or any sharp tool and then go in between the overlaps, so wherever it's just overflowed, and there we just go and then clear it up. So now we just continue the other side as well. I'm just going to allow this to dry for say about 5-10 minutes, and then I'll get back once I'm ready to do the stencil on the other side as well. So I just waited for a while and just check it wouldn't just stick, and I just can't be like rubbing over it. Okay, so it is just not wet. That is what we are just looking at, and I'm just going to keep my push pins ready and just going to place this where would just it match. Just start from here. So how much gap I'm just going to leave between the one that just got ended. I'll just position it in such a way. Anyway, I'm aligning the bottom here. Just put it inside one small hole in the design. And if the design itself does not have a hole like that, you can create a hole using the push pin itself. You could just make a hole there, and then through that you could just put the push pin, and that way you don't have to lose the design here. So bring it all the way, align the bottom. So I'm just going to start using the royal icing, just pipe over. So one side. So now once I have royal icing applied in all the holes, I'm just going to recheck. And then use the scraper. And just scrape it off in one stretch. And just do once on the top. So now this one is done as well. So the continuation looks good. Now again I'm just going to allow this for another 10 minutes and then come back to do this last batch, and then we'll have a stencil done completely all throughout the cake. So now this part is quite dried as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go on and then see where this one fits and keep my push pins ready. So now I'm just getting the stencil cleaned up. Okay, so here I'm just going to use the pin for me to know where exactly I should end. So it's like right here. You don't want to overlap. So I'll stop putting in the royal icing here. So basically it just goes here, but then I don't want the stencil to keep popping out. So I'm just going to add 2 more here. I'll just fix that one that's just opened up. Okay, so now I know I just need to stop before this point. Just to not give pressure to the stencil, so just don't want to move out. So I've just fixed on the other end as well. So now into this gap, royal icing. Scrape it. So into the overlap, the scraping hasn't happened like great, so you can see the excess there, but we could just allow this to dry. And in areas like this you just need to go in and then clean it up. So you can see these are already kind of dried. Now we just allow this entire thing to dry out fully, and then we'll be ready with the stencil that's done on royal icing over fondant. So I'll catch you up in the next lesson where I will show you how we are going to use all these tiers to finish making our traditional wedding cake.